Hi, Jason Coyle again, and I'm going to present you with what we have defined as the ineffective attributes of operations presentations during a planning meeting. All right, the first one is unprepared and winging it. So if you show up right before the briefing, you haven't consolidated your notes about all the actions that have been occurring today, you don't have good updates from the field, and you have new information that hasn't been passed on, and then you're surprised when somebody else in the room brings it up, that's a sign of an ineffective attribute. Disjointed or delegated ownership. So you present the divisions as their information without synthesizing it. And what I mean by that is you are the one that's supposed to present the coherent plan and present how everything that occurred today is part of a coherent strategy. So if you just list out different achievements, but you don't bring it all back together, that will be ineffective. Weak, vague, or heading language. You know, if you say that, hey, they're still working on it, especially scouting, right? If you say, hey, those guys are over there in Alpha are continuing to scout, it is not missed by anybody in the room by the second or third time you're continuing to scout with nothing else being said, that it's unclear what's going on and that you maybe don't know what's going on. And we're evaluating options is not a complete sentence. If you say that, you need to add the options you're evaluating when you'll have that evaluation complete and how that will inform your actions. And then the other one is a physically disengaged presentation. Mumbles or talks too softly, doesn't use the mic properly, holds it too far away, doesn't use it at all, forgets that even though there is a PA system, you still need to use your outside voice, and you present yourself as slouching or unprofessional and don't have a clear command presence like Caleb spoke to earlier. Another one is the tactical dumping. If you're getting down into engine assignments, hose lay lengths, and how modules are moving, that's something that needs to be in the post-ops or the pre-ops briefings with your divisions to coordinate. That's not for the planning meeting. And telling stories about past or unrelated fires that are not relevant and don't help people understand why the actions that you're proposing later are being proposed for this operational period. And then failure to link actions to objectives. So that's akin to listing out the division assignments separately. But if you just talk about the different actions that were occurring today, even if you do it in a somewhat congruent manner, but you don't talk about how they support the protection of the values at risk, then it's going to be unclear on the reason why and the effectiveness of the actions you took that day. And if you avoid inputs and ignore discrepancies, if you don't ask for questions, and then if somebody brings something up, say, well, don't worry, we'll work through that. That's not the purpose of planning meeting. You have discretionary time right now to develop a plan that will make it more effective and easier to implement when your discretionary time is limited. So invite those questions and make sure that you are taking care of any discrepancies up front. And also make sure that you're offering support to other sections to prep for the expected complications. So if the first time that the logistics section hears about your need for a spike camp tomorrow or issues with comm is in this briefing, then you've done it wrong. The chronology and geography is disorganized. Remember, you're trying to get everybody oriented to the plan so they can support the plan and so that the IC will endorse the plan. If you're bouncing all over the place and have incongruent thoughts about all the different work being done, that is going to be difficult for them to do. And finally, unprofessional demeanor or inappropriate commentary. If you're going off on tangents, using sarcasm, making light of issues that are serious, maybe not to you, but to the community that you're protecting, or speak dismissively about partners, that's a big deal. Most of these are recorded. Most of these are broadcast somewhere. And not only will you undermine your own credibility, but the credibility of the team if you choose to engage in those sorts of behaviors. And finally, making personal comments, jokes, or war stories that dilute message clarity. If you get done with a war story, now everybody forgot what the task, purpose, and end state and the incident objectives that were the priority for your operational period and how you work to achieve them, then you've talked way too much about things that were not at all relevant. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Caleb Finch, and I'm here to talk about the effective attributes of a planning meeting presentation by operations. These effective attributes include the following. The person is prepared and intentional. The individual comes into the meeting with a clearly developed plan, not half-baked ideas. They demonstrate understanding of leaders' intent, the incident objectives, and those values at risk, and how they all correlate together. This person knows the key messages and decision points before stepping up to speak. The individual also owns the plan. The person synthesizes inputs from divisions into one coherent strategy. It's not a collage of division plans. They also demonstrate commitment. Here's the plan, this is why we're doing it, and here's what we need. This ops chief also communicates strategically, not tactically. They keep focus at the operational level, what success looks like, and what needs to happen to support it. Also delegates tactical specifics to the tactics meeting or the division breakout. They also show professional presence and clarity, such as projects voice clearly, with or without a PA system, uses command voice when necessary, but not overbearing, uses a microphone, keeps it near the mouth, and checks it before speaking. It shows preparation prior to the meeting as well as professionalism, maintains eye contact and posture that projects confidence. Think about your audience. Turn around, make eye contact, look at them. It provides that personal connection. Also, don't turn your back to the audience. We're going to do this and do this and do this and do this and do this. Don't just point to the map. Your audience doesn't know the map like you do. Okay, an ops chief will use visual aids effectively, such as they walk the map logically, clockwise from an anchor point. Also think about your audience. If you're in day 5 of the planning meeting, they're used to your style of presentation. So if you start here at the bottom, continue to start here every single day. That's what they're used to. If you change it up different days, they're not going to be accustomed to that and you'll throw them off. Also point out the terrain, the control features, and then the values at risk. An ops chief will also tie the action to purpose. Operational tasks are framed in the terms of the purpose they serve, such as containment, the protection of life and infrastructure and property, etc. Think about how your message reinforces how actions align with the objectives and the overall strategic intent. Also, that ops chief will provide forward-looking insight. They anticipate downstream needs such as logistics, medevac access, night planning, communications, and then public perception. That person can forecast challenges and states how they'll be addressed. The ops chief also invites input and enables coordination, encourages questions from the support units and the partner functions in the room, and clearly states where coordination is required, i.e. Air and Med need to link up after this to finalize this plan. Logistics, let's discuss additional logistics concerns. Also, coming close to the end here, the ops chief is time aware but substance focused. You don't rush, but you also don't ramble. You understand that this is the time for detail, but you also keep it relevant. Avoid tactical micromanagement. Stick to the operational scope. Think that you're at the 50,000 foot looking down. The ops chief also avoids weak or deflective language. Does not say, we're still evaluating the options, unless it's followed up by specifics and a timeline for decision. We're still evaluating options to go direct utilizing this resource over this geographic area. Avoid disclaimers like, this might change, unless change is genuinely imminent and being managed. Also, the ops chief will demonstrate conviction without arrogance. Communicates that this is the plan, not just a plan, and is open to refinement, but is not indecisive. This concludes the attributes of an effective briefing for planning meeting.
Hi, Jason Coyle. I'm going to give you an example of what an ineffective planning meeting update looks like. All right, let's see where to start. Today I think I'm going to start with Zulu because we started with Alpha yesterday. They got some good work done with a couple dozers and a masticator down there over on this side. And they were going back and forth along the line from Lorraine's Crossing to Alpha Zulu break. You got to keep that equipment spaced, and sometimes you need to go back to pick up the work that wasn't quite done right. I think they got it all cut in, though. The bunchers are working below the slope above the lodge. Wait, the bunchers are working below the lodge on the... No, that's right. They're working below the slope above the lodge. They were saying that the trees were pretty tight in there, but they did say that they made a good dent in it. One machine went down for a while, but I heard that they had a hydraulic line or something, but I think they got it back up right at the end of shift, so it should be available tomorrow. Over in Juliet, they had a little bit of trouble with the road. They didn't tell me exactly where. Hopefully they'll put it in field maps, but it was near Wagon Pass. They had to fill in some washouts, and the good thing is the mine road is still open, so that's good. And I think the last load of uranium didn't go out today, and I feel like we thought it was going to, but I know it didn't. And so that's still something that we need to make sure, obviously, keep the road open for, because we know that's important. And then Echo, they had some folks working near the river. They set up a drafting site down there near DP5, and they cut some snags out. Everything's looking good there. They maintain their situational awareness while they're cutting those snags, which we know is super important. There is a little confusion about the water source and about what kind of strainers they needed to keep out the Tarantino minnows, but I'm pretty sure they got that taken care of. And they should be ready for firing. They were supposed to tell me if they weren't, and I haven't heard anything. Going back up to top there in Alpha, they did their part to complete that line from Alpha Zulu break to DP1. There were some thick fuels in there. The crew had to work through it. They finished up about 5 or so, and I think they got some help from the local district. That had a Type 2 crew that was just, they're probably on the fires P code anyways, but they were just sitting around. Contingency's looking at some trail, the Dimmick Trail, I think, and they marked some LZs. I believe they talked about one. By the end of the day, I felt pretty confident there was going to be 2 of them. Hopefully those are in field maps as well. And they were talking to Air Ops about making sure that that was finalized. So the structure group, finally, back onto them, their last group we got going, and they worked on the plan for the mine. I'm confident it's a good plan. Know that guy. We've worked together on some fires before. Matter of fact, gosh dang, I guess it's probably been 10 or 15 fires we worked together before on. Well, that was before he came on the team, and then, of course, all the time since he's been on the team. Anyway, structure group, they're solid, and I don't know what they ordered, but I'm confident that they ordered the right stuff because, like I said, he's good at his job. So that's pretty much what we've got. You guys are busy today. They did not get any updates into field maps, and they said that they're pretty sure that they could draw the lines on a map, sit when they come in at like 2100 tonight, and then SIT can update them. Probably not in time for a morning briefing, but they'll get them on there eventually. We know that's important. So thanks.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Caleb Finch, and here is an example of an effective planning meeting update for a planning meeting. Good afternoon. My name is Caleb Finch. Here's a summary of what was accomplished during today's operational period. Division Alpha completed line construction from the Alpha Zulu break to drop point 1 by 1700. Crews mitigated pockets of heavy fuel with support from local Type 2 IA crews. The line is prepped and hose lay materials are staged for tomorrow's extension to the Alpha Echo break. That flank is holding and remains critical to protecting the community of Two Pines. Division Echo tied line to the Viper River to the Alpha Echo break and established a drafting site and hella well at drop point 5. That site is fully functional and snag removal in the area was completed safely. This division remains set up to initiate blacklining operations tomorrow to secure the slope above the Blue Leaves Lodge. In Division Juliet, they improved the Oasis Road from the Echo Juliet break to Wagon Pass. Some minor erosion issues were encountered and addressed. Importantly, access to the El Paso mine remains intact, which is essential for ongoing uranium transport by the Pei Mei Mining Company. Over here in Division Zulu, they completed mechanical line construction from the Lorains Crossing to the Alpha Zulu break. The Feller Bunchers made good progress, reducing ladder fuels near the Double Diamond Lodge, positioning the area for successful firing operations tomorrow. In Contingency Group, they completed scouting of the Dimmick Trail. 2 potentially LZs were identified and marked. Air Ops has been looped in to evaluate their viability. This trail remains viable as a contingency control feature to protect the Alley of No Return watershed and the Tarantino minnow habitat in the Viper River. Closing out with the structure group, they finalized the structure protection plan for the El Paso mine and began staging equipment. Coordination with Division Juliet was effective, and supply orders for additional equipment were submitted at 1600 and we received confirmation that supply equipment has been able to be filled. We appreciate them planning ahead to support us. Overall, we made great progress. All primary line construction objectives for the day were met. Interdivision coordination was solid, particularly between Alpha and Echo. All of the planned and completed lines are in field maps, and we remain positioned to move into firing operations tomorrow night with confidence. Any questions?
Hi, this is Jason Coyle, and I'm going to give you an example of an ineffective planning meeting briefing for tomorrow's operational plan. All right. Okay, so this is what's going on tomorrow. I'm going to keep it high level. Crews out in the ground know what's going on, but I just want to make sure that everybody here is aware. So what we have planned for tomorrow is we're going to do more stuff in Alpha and Echo, and they're going to continue to coordinate because the building line and continuing that burning tomorrow, building off of what Field Ops said earlier, is key. So it's pretty straightforward, and the divisions, they both briefed me on what their plan was. I think it's a solid plan, and I'm glad that they came up with it because, frankly, I think they'll have more confidence in executing it. And while it's not exactly what we talked about before, I think it's going to work, and like I said, it's their plan. So we'll be firing by the evening regardless. It still might get a little bit smoky, but that is what happens when you do a burnout operation, right? So I'm sure that everybody around here is aware of it because this town's seen fire before. All right, so I know that logistics has got to do what they do, has got to be able to support us. I know they're ready to do that. You guys have always done a really good job supporting us. So we may be asking for some stuff about spike camps eventually, especially when that mine road gets cut down or gets shut down. But when we get there and we're ready to implement, we'll give you a heads up. The last load of uranium, I still don't know when it's going to go out. Field Ops wasn't sure, but we think it's going to be Thursday or Friday. Hopefully it's going to be sooner because then we can, shut that road down and not have to worry about traffic from those big trucks. And that's that's what's going on in the mine. So I think there's going to be some visibility stuff, especially, what I mean by that is, sorry, that wasn't very good. There's going to be problems with visibility. The smoke has been laying down in the valleys, and I'm afraid it's going to lay down in the valleys some more. And, that fire we had, remember by Jasper Lake when the fire in 2018, I think it was, and the smoke, and you couldn't even see. And then, people were telling us, we got to shut the road, but you can't shut the road when you have crews going in there to burn off of the road that's attached to that road on the other side. And that's a situation we have to deal with. But it's better than those columns that look like Mount Fuji. No, what's that mountain in? That's the mountain in Japan. That mountain in Iceland that blew up. It's got a different name. It's not Fuji. Yeah, no, it's not Fuji. Anyways, the whole town is probably going to call 911. So that happened before, right? They start calling 911. So, but that's why they have an emergency number to call. It was crazy there. Hopefully this isn't quite as bad. Anyways, they're still prepping the prep's still happening in Division Zulu, and they'll be ready later today for what happens next. And then we'll work on whatever happens next tomorrow during the plan. There'll be more cutting, I'm sure. They got to make sure that line's wide enough. And the division knows it has to hold, and he knows he's responsible if it doesn't because it's his plan. The structure group is doing what they need to do. They'll still need a little bit more time, but I understand that they have the resources ordered, and hopefully they're in supply and they don't have to go all the way back to the cache. Logistics, I'm sure you guys anticipated our needs, so make sure that we got the stuff we need, and with comms too, because there's that repeater issue. If we go over to that next drainage, if the repeater works or doesn't work, but I know you guys got that handled, so I'm not even going to worry about it. But prior, so in the last fire I was on here, that alley of no return drainage has been sketchy, bad coverage. So, but if you can't get it done, don't worry. We've gotten by with less, and we'll be okay. We're just going to hook up some more Starlinks if our radios don't work. So, anyways, planning. We will end up needing some night stuff, but not sure exactly when. And then when we do that, we'll probably need 2 planning cycles, but it won't be tonight, and it'll be later on. So, anyways, I know you guys can handle that if it happens. And everybody's got their roles. I'm not going to micromanage it. I think I talked about the important pieces around the fire. Plan's fluid, it's flexible. It needs to be for fires in this kind of situation. And we'll make sure that we stay ahead of the curve, keep our head on a swivel, make sure that we maintain our situational awareness, and that we implement the plan as effectively as we can to make sure that we protect what we're here to protect, right? Okay, thank you. That's the end of the operation. Oh, and we will get everything into field maps sometime in the next couple of days because I know that's important. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Caleb Finch and I'm going to give you an example of an effective planning meeting briefing for tomorrow's operational period. Hi everybody, my name is Caleb Finch, Planning Operations. Looking ahead to tomorrow's operational period, the focus is transitioning from line construction to achieving firing operations along key divisions, particularly between Alpha and Echo. Our success tomorrow sets conditions for firing operations over the next 48 to 72 hours. So beginning in Division Alpha, they'll complete the line from drop point 1 to the Alpha Echo break and establish a hose lay by 1800. Once that's complete, the night shift will conduct firing operations. Coordination at the division break is essential to prevent gaps in holding. Moving over to Division Echo, they'll continue to prep and initiate ignitions earlier in the day to confirm the effectiveness of planned blacklining. They'll need to coordinate their firing from Division Alpha to ensure they are ready to continue the operation when they arrive. Over in Division Zulu, they continue to mechanically prep for planned night ignitions tomorrow. This includes the widening of control lines and clearing ladder fuels near the Double Diamond Lodge. Visibility of these ignitions from the town will be really significant. We expect a column to be visible from Two Pines early in the evening. Public information should expect additional interest, and we briefed the ARA prior to the planning meeting so he had time to place his sensors. Over in Division Juliet, they'll finalize road improvements to the Division Zulu break and maintain mine access until the final uranium loads are transported. Once the mine road is closed, we'll need to shift structure protection and holding resources into a spike camp at the El Paso site. It is designated as the El Paso Spike in field maps. Logistics, begin planning now for a 40-person spike, setting up in 48 hours. Fuel, comms, medical access need to be factored in. We shared this info during the tactics meeting, but we wanted to bring it up again so everyone knows what to expect. In the contingency group, they'll begin improving the Dimmick Trail as a secondary control line. You'll see it here on the map as it's north of the containment feature. If we need to hold that line in the corridor, hold that fire in that corridor, we'll be operating close to the Alley of No Return watershed. That area's topography and remoteness raises some communication concerns, which we shared with communications. They will verify that the repeater system covers that drainage, and if not, they have a repeater backup ready, and they advise that it is already cloned and into our radios. Great work, Dave. So in closing with medical here, we advise that they should anticipate increased smoke exposure with firing operations. They have a solid plan for addressing this and potential travel delays, which I'm sure they will speak to. So depending on fire growth and fire activity, we may need to initiate a separate night planning cycle within 48 to 72 hours. Let's discuss trigger points for that shift during the tactics meeting tomorrow. We remain in alignment with our objectives to protect the community of Two Pines, the El Paso mine, downstream values including the Blue Leaves Lodge and the endangered habitat in the Viper River. The operational tempo will increase rapidly once firing begins, and the next two shifts are foundational for long-term access. Any questions?